This is the craziest race that baseball has seen since Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa duked it out in 1998, and you don't want to miss it. The reigning unanimous MVP, Shohei Ohtani, opened the year as the odds favorite to take home the award again this year. But one tall boy named Aaron Judge had other plans. After a torrid start to the season, Judge immediately entered his name into MVP consideration, while it looked like Ohtani could be due for some regression. But around came June. Judge slumped, by his standards at least, while Ohtani re-entered MVP mode. But there's a catch. He's an even better pitcher now. Over the summer, Ohtani reminded us all why he's the unicorn of baseball, with 31 and 2/3 consecutive scoreless innings pitched, highlighted by an 8 shutout inning, 13 punch-out performance. The day after, hitting 2 homers and driving in 8 runs for the Angels.
The 2-2 to Shohei Ohtani! He has done it! Wow! Way back! We are tied up, his second 3-run jack of the night!
At times, he was literally their only hope. But it's right around this time where Aaron Judge decided he wants to make the Yankees' $230 million offer look like a used napkin. Judge hit 13 homers in July and put up a slash line that would make even Barry Bonds proud, and tying the Yankees' single-season record with his 3rd walk-off homer of the year. And he's now challenging the all-time American League home run record, as well as the non-steroid record.
Here's the 3-1. Drill deep to left field. There it goes! Number 60! Slide over, babe. You've got some company.
These are without a doubt 2 of the most insane seasons that I've seen as a baseball fan. And now, with less than a month left in the season, these guys just continue to one-up each other. We may never see a race like this again. So let's break this thing down for you. You're watching Baseball Juice. Nick, what do you have to say about this MVP race?
So, as some of you may know, Shohei Ohtani was my preseason MVP pick. In most other seasons, pretty much every other season, he would be a lock for MVP. But we got this dastardly guy over in New York named Aaron Judge, who is just hitting a home run every time he freaking feels like it. With that said, if the season ended today, I would put Shohei Ohtani as my pick for AL MVP. How many lists could you find right now where Shohei is just on top of it because he's just doing things that no one's ever done before? This isn't to knock down Aaron Judge because he truly is having a historical season as well. But for now, I'm picking Shohei.
There are multiple players whose seasons you can compare to the one that Judge is having right now. There is only one player that you can compare Shohei Ohtani to, and that's himself from last year. He is doing something that baseball has never seen before. Babe Ruth was never as good of a pitcher as Shohei Ohtani is this year. He somehow improved on a unanimous vote from last year, and he's my pick for MVP as well.
Here's the deal. When you look at overall output, I mean, like you said, he's hitting like Mookie Betts. He's pitching like Shane McClanahan. And Aaron Judge is still putting out more overall output than Shohei is this year. And it's not to put down either one of them. It's just to really put into perspective the kind of year that Aaron Judge is having in a year also where they've deadened the balls. He has leaps and bounds over everyone in the offensive output. I mean, the only comparable player that you can put up against him is Paul Goldschmidt. And he's still an echelon or 2 above Goldschmidt this year, and he's up for the Triple Crown.
It would not surprise me, since Shohei Ohtani is doing something that no one believed that it was even possible to do before he did it last season. No one thought that someone could be this dominant on both sides of the ball in the same season in the modern day game. I think we've had hundreds of years to develop stats like OPS+, WRC+, and WAR, and we can really well quantify how good of a season that Aaron Judge is having. But I would not be surprised if in a few years we actually find out in hindsight that what Ohtani is doing is even better than what we realized for him. With that being said, my pick for AL MVP this year is Aaron Judge. If it ended today, Aaron Judge is having the perfect season that someone would need to have to beat Shohei Ohtani in a given year. Last year, we saw it was Ohtani versus Vladdy. We thought Vladdy put up a great offensive season, and he did almost hit the Triple Crown. Aaron Judge has taken a step forward on that season last year. On top of that, he's not playing first base. He's playing the outfield, right field, and center field, which are 2 extremely valuable defensive positions. He is putting up, like Jacob said, offensive numbers numbers like we haven't seen before. And it might be just because that we can quantify that better today, but Judge's season is so insane in a year that league offense is down per WRC plus, which measures the total offensive contribution of a player. If the season ended today, Judge is 28th all time. That's like 10 seasons of Babe Ruth ahead of him when he was playing against guys that smoked cigars for breakfast. Aaron Judge is putting together a better offensive year compared to the rest of the league than guys like Stan Musial did in their entire careers.
I would like to expand on something you did say, Kyle. I would say if Judge were to win MVP, that is the reason that he will be put over the top, is that he is actually playing pretty darn good defense in a premier defensive spot. I mean, obviously he's hitting balls to the moon every second day. If you look at that compared to what Shohei's doing in the box and on the mound, I think what would give him the edge is the fact that he's also being a very productive defender.
I agree. If you take Aaron Judge's season this year and he was playing, a mediocre first base, I don't think he has as strong of a case.
I will say though that Aaron Judge isn't Kevin Kiermaier out there. He's not even Mike Trout. It's not like he's having a monster year in the outfield and it's like both are contributing. It's pretty much at the plate is where all of this output is coming from.
The fact that you can have such an elite offensive presence in that position and open up spots at first base and the corner outfields where you're more likely to have better offensive producers anyway, I think that in itself gives a lot of value.
I think as a baseball community, we need to recognize the Hank Aaron Award as something a bit more important than what it is. I feel like a lot of times we just kind of throw it to the side, but I did some research over the last 20 years and only 9 out of the past 20 seasons has the winner of the Hank Aaron Award, which is the best overall offensive player, taken home an MVP in the American League. In the National League, it was 11 out of 20 times. We're looking at about 50-50 in terms of a player being the best offensive player and taking home the MVP in the same season. Aaron Judge is having an all-time offensive season. Shohei, on the other hand, is doing something that nobody else has ever done. I want to actually crack this conversation and discussion up a little bit further and dive into what makes an MVP versus a best player. Is it the best player always? Is it the player that accumulates the most WAR? Is it the player who plays for a winning team and carries them to the playoffs? How do we define that?
I think that's a really interesting point that Sam brought up, and it's a good question to ask because even the baseball community doesn't have a great definition for what the most valuable player award means. When I'm looking at the MVP award, the first place I go to is I look at the stats, focusing on who had the better statistical season. If there's a clear runaway favorite, that's probably my pick. In seasons where that's not decisive and it's closer, I like to zoom in a little bit and look at team context, not in a sense of like, oh, well, this guy played on the winning team, so therefore he was more valuable. We all know that's not how baseball works. But I think it is important to remember how a player's performance does impact their team relative to their expectations. And I tried to imagine what these two teams would look like with these players swapped. And I think that, if Aaron Judge were on the Angels, they'd still miss the playoffs. I'm sorry, Angels fans. But I think the important thing to focus on is what would the Yankees look like with Shohei Ohtani? It's interesting to think about, and I almost think that both of these players are a better fit where they are than if they were swapped. Like Aaron Judge has single-handedly carried the Yankees offense for months now. I have a question for you guys that Nick kind of brought up earlier, and he talked about the voter fatigue for what Shohei Ohtani is doing. I want to know if you think that this race would turn out differently if this were Ohtani's first year in the major leagues. If last year didn't happen, do you think the general baseball community would have a different opinion?
People were refusing to pick Shohei as MVP this year because they're like, he pitches and hits. Like, is he just going to win it every year?
Admittedly, the novelty of him doing both hitting and pitching has worn off a little bit. I think there's kind of no way around that in like a voter's subconscious.
What we are talking about this year in terms of Shohei Ohtani and the MVP race is not the fact that he just pitches and hits. It's the fact that he's doing both at an elite level. He is not an average hitter and he is not an average pitcher.
Like I said at the beginning of this, the wind could blow a certain direction and I could change my opinion on this. That's how close I think this truly is.
You have to look at the entire package for both of these players. What Aaron Judge is doing is historical, but so is what Shohei Ohtani is doing. It's such a close race, and that's exactly why we're making this video, There's also no wrong answer in the comments unless you pick a guy other than these two players.
I was going to say, there's about 748 wrong answers.
If I see a Xander Bogaerts in the comments, I'm going to freak out.
Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this, and we will catch you in the next one.